Welcome to our YouTube video series on employment law, focusing on employee terminations. My name is Christopher Neufeld of Neufeld Legal. And in this particular video, we're going to talk about overtime pay and whether or not you got your full overtime pay as of the time you get fired, terminated, or even quit your job. Because even though it seems relatively straightforward to calculate overtime pay, whether it's time and a half or double time, the truth of the matter is that depending on where you're working, like be it the province, state, the locality that you're working, and also certain other conditions and factors, it might not be as straightforward as you think. Naturally, your employer, who is now your former employer, will have looked at it and said, well, I'm just going to pay him what is required. And I'm going to use the simplest, most efficient, and naturally the cheapest, being the least expensive for them, means of paying you overtime pay. And so they're simply going to calculate overtime pay on whatever they told you in the contract, time and a half or double time. But that might not necessarily be the extent of it. You may be required to be paid more than what their computations come out. And this depends on the specificity of a number of factors. It starts where you're working, and then it goes on to other components of your employment arrangement. And that is going to heavily influence whether or not you are in fact getting paid your full overtime or not. You can't, and you shouldn't, simply take it for granted that if it says 1.5 times or it says 2 times, and you multiply one number by 1.5 or you multiply another number by 2, that the computation's right. This is legal matters, oftentimes statutory matters. And there are more complex formulas that are involved. Yes, it might be 1.5 times, it might be 2 times. But the question is, what is the number that's being multiplied by that? And you need somebody who understands that. You often need a lawyer who can actually break it down, explain it to you, explain the specifics as to where you are working, how that impacts the calculation of overtime pay. Because the last thing you want to find out is that you've put in tons of overtime over many, many years, oftentimes in a very difficult and hardworking position. And you've sacrificed a lot of time, you've sacrificed family time, you've sacrificed your body and your physical well-being. And yes, you got paid well. But if you simply got paid well, but you didn't get paid fully what you're entitled to, that is a serious issue. That is a problem that should be addressed. And especially when it's protected by statute, then you're actually entitled to that money, and your former employer oftentimes cannot hold it back from you. Yes, they'll play games with it, but there's more to statute, there's more to the law than what they're going to simply say, oh no, we're not going to offer that up to you. And especially when you're done with the job, they're going to push back. A couple reasons why. They don't want to set a bad precedent and have to pay overtime pay to everybody else at the correct rate. And on top of it, they've already paid you. They always feel like they've overpaid you, and it's coming out of what they consider their pocket to pay you more, even if it's a matter of paying you correctly. So when that's the situation, you need to understand where you're coming from and take the appropriate action and know how to take that action. And typically that requires legal counsel to be working with you, to work you through the process, to work you through the hurdles and expectations, because there's going to be pushback, at least from the outset. Because no employer is going to want to be throwing out lots of money to especially their former employees for work that's already been completed. They only want to be spending money on upcoming work, and at that, they want to spend the least amount of money possible. However, if your overtime pay has been miscalculated, and now you're out of a job, whether it's from your own decision or their decision, you're oftentimes, if not always, depending on where you are, entitled to collect on your outstanding overtime pay. Simply because they underpaid you in the past and now you're out of a job doesn't necessarily mean that you can't collect on what you've rightfully earned. So talk to a lawyer, deal with it, address the overtime situation, because there can be lots of money on the table that you're leaving there if you don't look into it, if you don't aggressively pursue it, because the money has been earned and it's your money oftentimes that you're entitled to, and as such, you should well be pursuing it. Thank you.